Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics.
Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Kirk Gray.
And this is Fred Schenkberg. Hey, Kirk.
Hey, Fred. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. Hey, we got a question came up the other day, and I thought, we were just chatting about this, that, and the other thing, and I thought, this might be a good question to talk about. And part of it was I was working, the original question was dealing with data analysis for field data. And at some point, the question came up. It was more of a statement from them that I was like, we need to talk about that. And it was, they were only counting a small fraction of all of the returns they got from customers. And they said, well, those were all no trouble found. We didn't find anything on those products that came back. They were working just fine. So we don't count them in our field data analysis.
Right.
And I thought, you and I have talked about this a little bit in the past, yet it's still out there. And I think it's worth, going after it is, my personal opinion on it. If it comes back to you, it costs you money. You have to deal with it, look at it, analyze it, do failure analysis, send them a new product, send them a refund, all of those kinds of things, not counting brand reputation and everything else.
Right.
And she said, well, we figure it's just customers making a mistake. And I'm like, in my experience and working with lots and lots and lots of different companies and field failure analysis and everything else, it might be a perfectly working product, yet it doesn't do what they expect because the marketing says you can do this, this, and this with it. And it doesn't actually do those things. Yet it turns on and meets all your engineering specs, but it doesn't do what it doesn't solve the problem the customer bought it for. Or it's the wrong color, or it's itchy on your skin, or it's something that's not even in your specifications.
Right.
Or it's intermittent. And those are really tricky to find unless you're really looking for it. I know we talked about that using HALT to uncover intermittence. Right.
Or it was a very low margin system, and combined with that system, a power supply, it didn't have a really good regulation and a unit that required tighter regulation. And so, the mismatch, the overlay of the capability of the distribution of that strength of that product versus the function of that component. So there is some percentage that'll come back and tested on the bench with a golden unit. It shows it's meeting specifications. The other side, the other part, like a PC, the motherboard or the graphics card is drawing more current than it's on the higher end of the distribution, and so. You do have those matches of two systems that it just doesn't have enough margin, and it shows intermittency, or it doesn't work with that system.
Well, it also extends to wall current, or it's in an environment it doesn't operate well, or it's
it could be a hot or cold environment, high humidity environment,
dusty one where it clogs the filter and it overheats, and you're like, where are you using this? Well, we're using it outdoors at a racetrack.
An enclosed building in, Phoenix, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you're right. I mean, you'd have to investigate where it came from, what the conditions were. And that's a lot of detail. Depending on the cost of the product, it's not going to come back with the product. I mean, it's not going to come back with that board. Also, you've got the problem of maybe somebody shotgunning their system and sending back bunches of parts that only one of them has failed.
Yeah.
And that's a problem too. That's a problem for companies. And
some companies self-inflict themselves with that. They do the repairs themselves and they shotgun it. And then they have a stack of components and only one maybe is bad, or it's a connector that was bad and they reconnected it and it's just fine. And none of the components they removed were bad.
Right. We know fretting corrosion is one that'll really throw you, because it basically, once you
reseat it. It goes away for
Yeah.
a little while.
But you may just take out one board and put in a new board, and of course it works, you know.
Yeah. And then it'll work only if you don't diagnose those. And this is for our careful listeners. If you don't really accurately diagnose connector problems, and fretting is a good one, it by the time it gets back to the customer, it will fail again. And if you don't fix it, it's going to fail again. And it'll increase the rapidity of how quick it fails as it builds up more and more crud.
And increase the negativity your customer has towards your brand.
That's right. You're spending more time in transit than it is working.
So you're losing a future potential revenue from that customer. Absolutely.
But one of the things that struck me and what I wanted to talk to you about is, I mean, we've talked about procedures and techniques and how to get through it, no trouble found type stuff and things like that. There's two buckets. One they mentioned was, well, they made a mistake, and it might have, and that's it. Actually,
that does happen.
It does happen. They bought 10 of them and they only needed 6, and so they sent the other 4 back.
Right.
But I've run into places where a whole pallet in the factory shipping container came back, and they said, "Oh, they all failed." They hadn't even unwrapped the shrink wrap from the outside of the pallet. And I probed into it a little bit and asked them questions, and they said, "Oh, if they ship it back because they ordered too much," and this was out to retail chains, they have a restocking fee.
Right.
But if they call it a warranty claim, they get full credit. Like, okay. You know, they actually have to have sold it to somebody before they can claim a warranty claim on it.
Right.
And so we closed that loophole real quick. But it's sometimes it really is a problem in shipping or expectations, or it was over inventory or all kinds of other reasons. Depending on your product, it might be in spares for a long time, and they said, well, we're upgraded out of this, so we're going to ship it back to you. It's just been sitting there for 2 years in this box, and it should still work, and it did, but they want their money back. Yet, in my experience working with, I don't know how many different products, that's pretty rare. Most people,
No, that's pretty rare. But I think we both agree that there is a lot of noise in the warranty returns department.
Oh, yeah.
Coming back. There's just part of it, we know that for the reasons that there is no actual failure. You just mentioned one where, and it's from a store, those can be discounted a lot of times because of that technical issue and how they get their money back. But for a customer like myself or somebody sending something directly back to the
manufacturer.
Right. It would be, it's a big hassle for me, and it's, leaves me without something working. And so I think you could put a more weight on the field returns from customers, definitely, than factory or store returns or whatever. But we've always known that there's noise, and we mentioned intermittence, and I've always suggested in my just experience, about 30% of those returns, if you put them under a stress condition of, voltage, thermal, vibration, that you would find about 1/3 of those that are returned to have no defect found can be stimulated to be detectable intermittence or failures.
Well, that only works if the attitude, and that's where I would kind of like this, 6% out of your 8% returns, or 6 out of the 8 of your returns, you're just doing a cursory, does it function, and then calling it a customer mistake or customer error or, whatever. Right. And not looking beyond that. And I agree with you. There's 2 ways to go at it: is go find the intermittence, or go find what is systemically disconnecting this so the customer takes enough time to actually send it back to you. And it might be financial, or it might be marketing. It also might be that the expectation for why they bought the product is not being met for some reason. And that goes back to what was the original design and criteria for the product, and did you actually meet that? The attitude part, the troubleshooting part, I think most of us can deal with. But yet, when the company's attitude is, well, we just have a lot of customer returns that are frivolous, and you got to fix that first before you're going to ever go figure out what's really going on.
Right. Another one is, to me, that just irritating as hell, and that's infant mortality. Just dismissing it and saying,
"Oh, that's a quality problem."
Yeah, there's always a few that die.
Yeah,
there's always 14 or 20 or whatever that die out of the 1,000, and I go, no, that's probably not correct. You probably got something going on in the circuit you don't know about, like
or you got something in your
transient, or
you got a bad. One of my classic ones for infant mortality and I know I've told you the story, but it ended up being the way they depaneled the circuit boards, that separated the individual boards on their production line.
As they bent them.
He just bent them. And he's breaking capacitors, breaking vias, breaking traces and all this stuff. Right. And it would pass electrically.
Sure.
And the line, especially the capacitor breaking, because it was supposed to look like an open.
Right.
And it would ship, and 2 weeks later or 2 months later, the thing would fail. And it was that a quality problem or reliability? I don't care. It was a failure, and we caused it. It wasn't a bad design. It was a bad design of the manufacturing process.
Right. For them to be bending the boards instead of cutting them, but it was cheaper. I mean, to break them apart, and they thought that wouldn't do any damage. And for some percentage of boards,
there wasn't a whole lot of thinking going on there.
Right. But for a certain percentage, it didn't cause. You had some of those boards work. If 100% of them failed.
There was enough failing that's why they shipped me off to the factory to go figure out what was going on. It wasn't one or two. It was close to 10, 20% were failing in the first 2 months. And it was, year of all of it working just fine. And the particular factory decided they were going to expand their footprint like 3x. And they were hiring anybody that was alive.
Right.
And we thought, we got to go see what's going on. Of course, there was donuts in the conference room for 4 hours before they let me walk through the floor.
It's all right. We just got a lot of noise in the whole return department, and but it's really, it's a tough call sometimes. Whether this is going to be, if you see the first trickle of the field returns come in for some particular mechanism, at first it doesn't seem like a big deal. Then it becomes more, significant, and where you catch that, because if you don't catch it soon enough, you've already built all the defectives.
You're already really exposed.
Like, unfortunately, a large computer company did with a bad capacitor. Had already seen it, even though I know it was it may have shown itself up, but it was too late because all the bad components had been used
already. They're all out there. Yeah.
So
it's either a recall or just budget up to do all the replacements, later. It's the issue I find is that the assumption that, and I ran into it with a general manager once, was, customers always complain. I like, the attitude with that is that you're just dismissing your role of actually learning from, faults or failures or miscommunications or whatever. If you just wave your hand and go, "Oh, we're not going to pay attention to that. That's a customer's problem." I think you're really breaking the process of that trust between the company and the customer. Is like they're paying for a solution to a problem they have, right? I don't buy a computer just because I need a computer. I buy a computer so I can do stuff with it and helps my business or helps my entertainment or does whatever. But the idea of just waving your hand and dismissing it is so wrong in so many levels in my mind is a minimum, right? If you don't pay attention to what's happening with returns or customer complaints, it is very easy to just go out of business because you're not going to have that customer back and they're going to tell 200,000 other people. But you're not the only game in town. Come on.
Well, that's true in my particular favorite hobby, and that's pinball. That there's one game in town. His name is Stern, and he makes 96% of the pinball machines.
Yeah.
So, I since I play every day at one particular arcade, I know the man who maintains them, and I know, in fact, I've known for a long time the guy that does the in-depth troubleshooting and repair. And we talk about reliability all the time in these machines, but in that particular industry, you just bought yourself $7,000 worth of maintenance in the future. And it's just, and I just say, this is so frustrating because I am constantly messaging the repair person, the maintenance guy, about all the failures I find in all the machines I play, and switches.
Well, your paddle getting out of the line. You just say if they just beveled an edge of that, but a set screw on it, it'd never move again.
Exactly. We talk about things that get bent over time. And I said, all they need to do is use a little thicker metal in the sheet metal assembly, and they would have fixed that, but they're not. They're so stuck and happy with a design from 40 years ago that's worked most of the time.
Yeah.
That they just are so, and they dominate. I mean, there's one other manufacturer, Jersey Jack Pinball, that does a few machines, small percentage compared to what Stern puts out.
Yeah.
But the whole industry is just oriented, well, that's what you get. That's, pinball machines, and that's true.
Well,
we know with the mechanics that's true, but and each one is hand built. They're hand soldered, and
somebody's going to come along and with the pinball machine industry as a whole, and you may disagree with this, kind of lost it when Xbox and Nintendo and those guys did video games and
came along, and it nearly killed pinball. I mean, for years, I started playing in 73, 74 when I went to college, and then video games came along and it kind of disappeared, but then it came back very strong, and then the pandemic was going crazy, and it's still. The Wall Street Journal had a recent article about the resurgence of it.
Well, people are buying cassette tapes from the 60s and 70s now. So there's always a time I'm waiting for the skinny jeans to come back.
Well, these aren't
because I still got a couple of those.
These aren't old games. These are new. I mean, there's one themed after John Wick, the movie series.
Yeah, no, that's true. But the technology inside the box is not new.
No, but
40
LEDs,
years old.
LCD screens, there are changes.
There are changes.
Graphic cards.
Yeah, but it makes a difference for, around the edges kind of stuff.
Right. Okay.
They're not fundamentally changing the design of these things.
A flipper assembly and the solenoid plunger assembly has been around for about 60 years unchanged.
Right.
Really.
I think that they're missing an opportunity to, maybe they don't want to fix it because if they get 100% of the market, they're going to, the trade commission's going to say you're a monopoly and you got to break it up, or something like that. But they are, missing the opportunity. And there's all kinds of business reasons I don't know anything about.
Right.
Yet, fundamentally, ignoring potential customer failures in your product during the design process is just folly. If you know that this is going to fail and you ship it anyway and it fails that way, well, shame on you. That's just bad, especially safety related stuff.
Right.
But you got to draw the line someplace. You got to get the product out. You're not going to fix all the issues yet. You really should do some due diligence there. And then when the customer says, hey, it's not working, just dismissing it out of hand is whatever reason is, I think, equally as much folly as
they don't. I think they're responsive in general, but they're a very tolerant, the company that Stern and Jersey Jack are very tolerant of and the owners
The
and
industry is.
operators are very tolerant of unreliability in the industry,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of accepted.
Yeah.
And
We're not so tolerant as a society with aircraft being unreliable.
No, and yeah, now Boeing is paying a big fine for its.
It's like
for
what, $750 million or something like that.
I know, and but they're also monopoly. You know, they're very. You can't go and buy another.
Well,
you got Airbus, you got Boeing.
That's true. I heard recently that was it the British group or the Canadian group that make short haul, real small planes, passenger planes that seat 40 or 50
Bombardier.
Bombardier, and there's Embraer is another one. I think
right.
Brazilian.
Yeah, right.
And one of them is coming up with a 737 range and capacity type plane.
Oh, really?
Soon. Yeah. So I think they're kind of timing that, and I think it's pure luck that Boeing is stumbling with the 37s. But it takes a while to build a new plane and get it through the hurdles.
It does. But it's quite a challenge, yeah.
But if they can come in and show that their orders of magnitude more comfortable and quiet and easier to maintain and more profitable for the owners, for the airlines and stuff, they're going to take that market. It's just that it's such a high barrier to entry that I wish them well, because we do need some push to say, if you don't sell planes, you don't make money. And a big criteria is how much does it cost to actually operate and maintain.
Right. And certainly reliability means something different in the aircraft industry than it does in the pinball industry. But the thing is, in the pinball industry, reliability is not a sales, it's not a particular feature that anybody focuses on, because you really only have one dominant company, and the others are just barely being able to crank out a machine every 3 months. It's really amazing, the difference. But that's the thing.
Maybe they should put flashing lights on the airplanes. Nobody would care that their drop-down tray doesn't work, or the entertainment system doesn't work.
Yeah,
a lot of bells going off and flashing lights and.
Yeah. But no, I think that in general, the warranty return and the responsiveness of company to really investigate is a challenge, because they do have all these other noise factors, and every time they touch a warranty return, it increases their cost for processing that.
Yeah, I think that's a false logic, though, is if I just ignore that these connectors are fretting, and because of the metallization we picked on these things for that application, and we just choose not to investigate it, we are still going to get the 100 failures in the future. If we fix it, we avoid 98 of those. Yeah, it costs us a couple $1,000s to go sort this out, and a design change possibly. Yet,
I'm sure you've been with companies that have that have
reasonable volume. Yeah,
a trigger point where returns will trigger a deeper investigation.
Yeah, I've run into two sets of those. There's one where it's a certain number or certain trajectory, right? But you need to do the failure analysis to figure out if these are related failures or not. So that's given. And then the other one is when it's a safety thing. It only takes one. Then you investigate it.
That's where I find Weibull and all the other statistics, I think, you count the failures coming back, but does that, and the time to when they failed, to see if it's early life, wear out, whatever. And I think the whole point is to find out what the physics that caused the failure. That's the point. That's what tells you everything.
The statistics part of it is you still need to know, was this a loose screw, or was this a bad power supply for some reason? Or you still need that in order to do decent analysis.
Well, you always need that in the end to know how to correct it.
Yep. No, so I guess we should rename this. Do failure analysis on your field returns, all of them. Find out why it came back.
It's right, to the best of your ability.
That's
Sometimes
right.
you're blind, but
But yeah, just tooth and nail. Get
keep asking the 5, 10, 12 whys. Why?
Yeah. There's a lot to that. But anyway, I was just, and you're right. I think some of the industries are more tolerant than others and so on. And yet I
Depends
think,
on how much you dominate that particular field.
yeah.
You know?
And even so, there's people that dominate and still go after all this stuff and keep improving. But anyway, it was an issue. I thought, I know we've talked about the how to go about troubleshooting, no fault found type stuff. But
Right,
this one
right.
was more at the attitude. And I think that's the problematic part of it.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're listening to this and you're going, yep, that's our company. We just ignore all this stuff and we have like 80% no trouble found and we ignored all of it and stuff like that. Hopefully you got a hint.
It's the customer's fault.
It's the customer's fault. Yeah, they abused it or whatever. What are you going to do about it? Hopefully we brought up a couple of ideas or tips here, but the issue is it's usually a cultural issue. So it's a tough issue to get through an organization. If you've got some ideas on how to solve this, or if you've been through a program that you actually made a difference in solving this problem, let us know. Head over. We like questions a whole lot, but I think having a success story would be way cool too. Head over to accendoreliability.com/go/SOR. You can find a couple of ways to get in touch with us. Kirk and I and the other hosts are available through LinkedIn and our About pages on Accendo. So plenty of ways for you to get in touch and let us know what's on your mind, or if you have a suggestion or an idea or a success story, that'd all be good.
We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. So I guess, Kirk, you're going to go play one of those faulty machines until you figure out what's wrong with it and go.
Yeah, I'm their head tester.
I guess.
And so I got to go, test them every day. And
there's a lot of machines out there.
There's a lot of machines.
It's a full-time job. I understand. Yeah. Well, enjoy.
They're pretty nice to me. They give me a lot of free games, a lot of test examples.
That's right. There you go. Well, have a good time. Enjoy yourself.
Okay.
We'll talk to you later.
To you soon. All right.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.